Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a really wild piece of history, the Battle of Los Angeles, or sometimes called the Great Los Angeles Air Raid, February 24th and 25th, 1942.
Yeah, it's a legendary incident. You've got this chaotic night where American anti-aircraft guns just start blasting away over a major U.S. city. We're talking less than 3 months after Pearl Harbor.
Right, the timing is key. Fear was sky high.
Absolutely. And the core mystery, the thing that keeps people talking, is that they fired over 1,400 shells.
1,400?
Yeah, huge amount,
Yeah.
resulting in civilian deaths, property damage.
Yeah.
But no confirmed enemy planes shot down. Nothing.
So the big question, the one that spans military history, psychology, even, ufology, what were they actually shooting at?
Exactly. So our mission today is to wade through all of it. The official WWII records, the psychoanalyses of mass hysteria, even the more out there UFO theories. We want to understand this case study in wartime paranoia.
Okay, let's start with the context, because the fear wasn't irrational, was it? The West Coast really was on edge for good reason.
Oh, definitely. It wasn't just paranoia. Japanese submarines were actually operating off the coast. They'd attacked American merchant ships late in 41, early 42. Ships like the SS Cynthia Olsen, the Montebello. Real attacks.
And then just the day before this whole LA thing?
Right. February 23rd, 1942. This is critical. A Japanese sub, the I-17, surfaces near Santa Barbara and shells the Elwood oil field.
Okay, I remember reading about that. How bad was the damage?
Physically.
Yeah.
Almost nothing. Like maybe $500 worth. But that's not the point, is it?
No, the psychological impact must have been immense.
Exactly. It proved the mainland could be hit. First time the continental U.S. had been shelled by a foreign enemy since the War of 1812, basically. The threat suddenly felt very, very real.
So with that happening literally the day before, was the military just like itching for a fight? Or was there more specific intelligence?
Well, that's the other crucial piece. On February 24th, right after the Elwood shelling, naval intelligence issued a specific warning.
Okay.
They stated that an attack on mainland California could be expected within the next 10 hours.
Wow. So not just general fear, but a direct, timed warning from naval intel.
Precisely. This wasn't just rumor on the street. This came down the chain of command. Danger imminent.
So you've got the recent shelling, the specific warning. Los Angeles itself was already prepared, right? Blackouts were common.
Yeah, LA was often called the City of Shadows. They had regular blackout drills. Anti-aircraft guns were positioned. Bunkers were ready. The population knew the air raid protocols. They weren't just scared. They were primed for action.
It really sounds like a powder keg waiting for a spark.
Perfectly put. The stage was absolutely set for misinterpretation and catastrophe.
Which brings us to the night itself. There was an earlier alert, but it sort of fizzled out.
That's right. First alert was around 7:18 p.m. on the 24th, but it was lifted by 10:23 p.m. The real deal started in the early hours of February 25th.
Okay, walk us through it.
2:25 a.m., air raid sirens go off all across LA County. A total blackout is ordered. Imagine the tension. It's dark, the sirens are wailing. Everyone remembers the Elwood attack and the Nazi warning.
Yeah, terrifying. And then the shooting starts.
Yep. 3:16 a.m. The 37th Coast Artillery Brigade begins firing. These aren't amateurs. These are trained coastal defense troops.
What were they firing?
Heavy stuff. 12.8-pound high-explosive anti-aircraft shells, plus .50 caliber machine guns, aiming at, well, reported aircraft.
And the descriptions from people on the ground?
Universal.
Wow.
Just the sheer intensity. People said the sky over L.A. erupted like a volcano. Searchlights cutting through the dark, the constant roar of the guns, the explosions overhead.
And they kept this up for hours, firing over 1,400 rounds. Did they scramble any fighter planes?
Good question. The pilots of the 4th Interceptor Command were put on alert, but crucially, their planes stayed on the ground.
Why?
Probably because it was just too dangerous. Imagine sending fighters up into that mess. The risk of friendly fire, shooting down your own planes in that chaos, would have been astronomical.
That suggests they maybe knew things were out of control on the ground?
It certainly implies a lack of clear targets or a recognition that the situation was completely confused.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The aftermath. The shooting stops. The all-clear sounds hours later, around 7:21 a.m. What was the actual human cost of this incident?
It was tragic and immediate. 5 civilians died. Not directly from the shells, but as an indirect result.
How?
3 people died in car accidents during the blackout. Total darkness, panic, people driving erratically, and 2 others died from heart attacks, literally scared to death by the stress and the noise.
Awful. And the property damage from all those shells falling back down.
Extensive. Remember, what
Yeah.
goes up must come down. Shrapnel rained down all over the area. Buildings, cars, homes, riddled with holes from American anti-aircraft fire, all friendly fire
It's
damage.
just a complete disaster. And then the government tries to explain it badly.
Oh, spectacularly badly. Right away, you get two completely different stories from the highest levels. They couldn't even agree if there was anything to shoot at.
Okay, so who said what?
Well, the Navy Secretary, Frank Knox, he came out almost immediately and basically said, false alarm. Blame the whole thing on anxiety and war nerves.
Just nerves. After firing 1,400 shells.
That was the Navy line.
Yeah.
But the Army, the guys who actually did the shooting, they weren't having it.
Understandably.
Right. The Secretary of War, Henry Stimson, he maintained that there were unidentified planes up there. He estimated between 1 and 5.
Okay, so Stimson thought something was there. Did he say what? Japanese planes?
This is where the Army theory gets here.
Interesting.
Stimson suggested they might have been commercial aircraft, maybe flown by enemy agents.
Enemy agents. Why?
As a psychological warfare tactic, trying to cause panic, maybe draw out defenses, make the U.S. waste resources. That was his explanation anyway. Unproven, of course.
Wow. So right off the bat, total contradiction. Navy says nothing. Army says enemy plot.
Exactly. And that's crucial for why this becomes such an enduring mystery. When the government can't even get its story straight from day one, it creates this vacuum, and speculation rushes in.
Did the Army theory ever get proven? Did we find out about enemy agents flying planes?
Nope. In fact, after the war ended in 1945, the Japanese government officially stated they flew no aircraft over Los Angeles during the entire war, period.
So the Army's explanation kind of fell apart, too.
It did, which eventually brought the official military consensus back towards the Navy's initial idea, just with more detail. The Office of Air Force History, much later in 1983, concluded it was likely triggered by war nerves,
Okay.
probably set off by seeing one or more meteorological balloons.
Weather balloons.
Weather balloons?
Seriously.
That became the official story. The balloons, maybe some stray flares, the shell bursts themselves being mistaken for targets in the searchlights, all amplified by mass hysteria.
So the Great Los Angeles Air Raid was caused by balloons and panic. It sounds almost insulting given the scale of the response.
It does. And it leads to the big psychological question, doesn't it? How could so many people, trained soldiers, civilians, be so incredibly wrong?
Yeah, how does that happen?
Well, this is where we get into the psychology of perception under stress. There's a key concept: the power of prior frameworks for understanding.
Okay, break that down. Prior frameworks.
Think of it this way. Your brain, under extreme threat, prioritizes speed. It looks for patterns it expects. So you have Pearl Harbor fresh in everyone's minds. You have the actual attack at Elwood the day before. You have that specific naval intelligence warning saying attack imminent.
Right.
All that creates this incredibly strong mental framework. People weren't just afraid of an attack. They were actively expecting Japanese planes overhead. That expectation became a filter for everything they saw.
So when something appeared in the sky, a balloon, a cloud lit by a searchlight, anything unusual,
The brain defaulted to the expected threat. It skipped the mundane explanation, oh, maybe it's a weather balloon, and jumped straight to enemy aircraft, because that's what the framework predicted.
and the witness reports support this idea of misinterpretation.
Massively.
Yeah.
That's almost the smoking gun for mass hysteria, really. The descriptions are all over the map. If it had been one real object, or even several similar objects, you'd expect some consistency.
But there wasn't.
Not at all. People reported seeing swarms of planes. Some said one plane, some said hundreds. Some said they were flying really slow. Others said over 200 miles per hour. Huge variations in reported size, speed, altitude.
It sounds like everyone was seeing something different. Or seeing their own fears.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And a lot of what they were likely seeing, the explosions from their own anti-aircraft shells.
How does that work?
Imagine a shell bursts, creates a big puff of black smoke, flak. A searchlight beam catches that smoke cloud for a second. In the dark, under stress, that illuminated cloud looks like a solid object.
Ah,
And seeing that object confirms the fear, confirms the framework, which makes them keep firing, which creates more shell bursts, more targets. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. The firing itself was creating the illusion of targets.
that makes a disturbing amount of sense. But then there's the other explanation, the one that never seems to go away.
The UFO theory. Yep. You can't talk about the Battle of LA without addressing it.
And that really hinges on one specific thing, doesn't it? That photograph.
The Los Angeles Times photo from February 26, 1942, it's iconic. You see the searchlight beams converging on this object. in the sky.
It looks pretty convincing in the photo, like a solid craft caught in the lights. UFO proponents point to it as clear evidence of an alien ship.
It looks convincing, but there's a crucial detail often missed. That photo, the famous version everyone sees, it was heavily retouched by the newspaper before publication.
Retouched? How?
Standard practice back then for print quality.
Hmm.
They had enhanced contrast, sharpened lines. In this case, the photo editors likely took what was probably a fuzzy, indistinct blob of light, maybe the balloon, maybe flak smoke, and cleaned it up, making it look much more solid and defined, like a structured craft.
So the photo itself might be misleading evidence?
Very likely, yes. Unretouched versions exist, and they show something much less clear, much more like illuminated smoke or a small, indistinct object. The classic photo might be more art than reality.
But the UFO claims go beyond just the photo, right? There are stories about memos and recoveries.
There are. You hear about supposedly unauthenticated memos, like from General George Marshall to FDR, allegedly mentioning recovering unidentified airplanes or even celestial devices of interplanetary origin near LA or San Bernardino after the incident.
Unauthenticated, though.
Keyword, yes, unauthenticated. But these stories fuel the narrative, and they're backed up by some pretty dramatic eyewitness accounts that don't sound like balloons or flak.
Like what?
Some witnesses describe the main object as huge, totally silent, flat, or disc-shaped. Some even tried triangulation and estimated it at maybe 800 feet long, much bigger than any known aircraft or airship.
And the fact that nothing seemed to damage it, all those shells.
That's the core argument for the UFO proponents. If something was there and 1,400 shells couldn't bring it down, what on Earth or off-Earth was it? That apparent invulnerability is key to the extraterrestrial theory.
There's also that connection to the movie War of the Worlds, isn't there?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Albert Nowacki, who won an Oscar for art direction on the 1953 War of the Worlds, apparently said he based the menacing design of the Martian war machines partly on the huge, dark, silent object he personally witnessed during the Battle of LA.
Wow. So whether it was real or not, the perception of it had a direct cultural impact almost immediately.
Absolutely. It lodged itself in the public imagination. It inspired that 1979 Spielberg produced comedy 1941 and the much more recent action movie battle, Los Angeles. The Fort MacArthur Museum down there even does an annual event commemorating it, with searchlights and sound effects. And of course, it's still listed as a major historical UAP case.
Okay, so pulling it all together, what does this story really tell us? It feels like a perfect storm.
I think that's right. It's this incredible mix. You've got confirmed facts,
Yeah.
real submarine threat, the Elwood attack, the military firing, the tragic civilian deaths. Then you layer on the confusion, the conflicting government stories, the psychological pressure cooker of wartime fear.
Which leads to misidentification, mass hysteria.
Exactly. And then, into that mix, you throw the possibility of something truly unknown, fueled by that ambiguous photo and some compelling, if unproven, accounts.
It seems like the government's immediate fumbling of the explanation was almost a gift to conspiracy theorists.
I think that's a huge takeaway. The Navy saying nothing, the Army saying enemy plot. That fundamental contradiction right at the start meant the official story was immediately flawed. It basically opened the door and invited alternative explanations, whether psychological or extraterrestrial, to fill the gap. They almost created the enduring mystery themselves by failing to agree.
So, a final thought for people listening, something to chew on. Consider this. The term flying saucer, that whole cultural phenomenon, didn't even really exist until Kenneth Arnold's sighting in 1947. That's 5 years after the Battle of Los Angeles. So back in 1942, under the extreme stress of war, people readily mistook balloons and maybe even their own shell bursts for enemy planes because that was the framework they had. Now think about today. We have our own powerful frameworks, don't we? Shaped by decades of sci-fi, by government UAP reports, by online narratives. So the question to ask yourself is, how much do those modern frameworks influence what we think we see in the sky now? Are we still, in a way, projecting our expectations onto ambiguous lights in the dark, just like they did over Los Angeles 80 years ago?